Hey there, and welcome to the Your Creative Mind podcast. I'm your host, Izolda Trakhtenberg. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. So, I had a crazy busy week, and it was my birthday. I am in the last year of this decade. It is bizarre to me to think that I am in the last year of this decade, but here I am. And I made myself a very busy bee. I went to Grand Central and listened to incredible piano music and looked at the Dear New York exhibit. And then I went to see a Broadway show. And then I went to Barcade and played Elevator Action, which was my favorite arcade game when I was a kid. And then I met delightful friends for Delise and Sarah Zen, wonderful vegan French restaurant in the Village, for dinner. It was hugely busy. And then what happened was on Thursday, I sort of was almost comatose. I kept meaning to go to the rooftop at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which is closing for 5 years after October 19th. And I just could not get myself to move. And so I took the day as a sort of a recuperation day. I worked, but I didn't do anything too strenuous. And then on Friday, I felt a little bit the same. And then a friend of mine who lives in Queens, shout out to you, Megan, went, "Hey, come on up and let's do karaoke." And so, like an idiot, I went, "Yes, I will do that." And I rode the longest I've ridden, not in my life, because I used to ride 50 miles a day when I was preparing for this bizarre trip in my 20s. I was going to take from DC, this is back when I lived in Washington, DC. I was going to ride down to New Orleans for a jazz festival and then take the train back. So I was going to ride my bike all the way down for like a few weeks. I was going to camp. It was going to be lovely. So I was in training in my mid-20s to do that. And then my bike got stolen and it kind of derailed my whole plan. But I was riding about 50 miles a day. Admittedly, that was pretty flat because I was down in DC. So I'd go down when the J. Sword Johnson statue, Awakening of the Giant Coming Out of the Earth, was still down at Haynes Point. That's where I'd go now. I think it's by the Gaylord or somewhere near National Harbor. But back then it was at the very bottom of Haynes Point. So I'd ride down from DuPont Circle and I'd ride around Haynes Point a bunch of times and then I'd ride home. And generally DC is a swamp, so it's very flat. So there was not a lot of hilly kind of riding. But this past Friday I went, I'm going to do it. And so it was 15 miles each, a little over 15 miles each way in the dark. Part of it, the way back was in the dark, but I did it, right? So I was like, okay, let's try this. I'm going to try it. I'm going to go. I'm going to make it happen. And I have a deal with myself. I have an e-bike, which is street legal in New York City, this kind of e-bike, which is nice. And my deal with myself is I only use the throttle on the e-bike when I absolutely have to. So if I can at all use my own body, I do that, and I don't engage the pedal assist unless I just am exhausted. So I rode the vast majority of the way up and back. I helped myself a little more because I was so tired. But then Saturday, I kind of went, okay, that's it. I need a rest. I need a do nothing day. And I still worked, but my workout regimen yesterday was I'm going to do some very, very gentle yoga and maybe a little motion like dancing, which I try to do every day. But I did not do anything else physical or strenuous. In fact, I left my chores. I fed the cats. I did that, but I did not do all the other things that I probably could have done. But I took the day as a rest day. Today, if you're listening to this on Sunday, October 12th, you might know that there's a huge nor'easter starting in New York City right now, and the winds picking up, and it's been raining on and off. But it's going to be one of those days where you're going to sort of be bent at a 45-degree angle if you're walking against the wind to try and get anywhere. And of course, Rich and I are going to see a show, and I'm very excited to see this. It's called Relative Stranger, and it's comedian Chanel Ali is putting on this one woman show all about sort of identity, family, survival, going through all sorts of stuff to get out the other side. And so I'm not doing nothing today, and tomorrow starts another hugely busy week. But I have really started getting myself into this notion of recovery days, of recuperation time. And as I was doing my morning meditation this morning, I went, give yourself the gift of doing nothing. And then I went, well, what does that mean? What does doing nothing mean? And I feel a little bit like this might sound kind of strange because I'm usually pretty productivity obsessed. And probably you are too. Get stuff done, get stuff done. But what about spending time in nothing, doing absolutely freaking nothing? So what does that mean? Well, I want you to stay with me here before you go, okay, no, this isn't for me. Or you go to check your notifications or you go back on social or whatever it is you're doing with your Sunday afternoon. This isn't about wasting time. This is not a time waste. It's actually kind of a time reclaimer. And let me explain what I mean. I think we live in a culture that sort of magnifies and glorifies and tells you you should be hustling. It just glorifies the hustle. It really does. And in fact, that's what they call it. Like if you have a hobby or something else that you are doing in addition to your career, it's called a side hustle, right? So you're always like, hey, go, 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 do, do, do. And so if we're not moving, if we're not achieving something, if we're not scrolling, if we're not doing, we feel guilty. And I know I'm guilty of that too. I'm guilty of feeling guilty because I feel like I'm constantly falling behind. But the question that I had for myself in this meditation session was, what if stillness isn't the opposite of progress? What if it's sort of the space that makes progress even possible? I know it sounds kind of weird, but hold on, because doing nothing doesn't mean you or I am being lazy or unmotivated. And here's the problem, because even as I say that, there's a part of me that's going, but no, it kind of does mean that you're not motivated or that you're being lazy because you should be. Boy, that I should be is in my head all the time. And I keep trying to go from should to could, and I have to I get to, because it's so important to change the way I relate to my to-do list, to the way I'm moving through my life. Because that should it has so much guilt layering. It's like the guilt is the icing on the cake of the should. and I know that's supposed to be, cake is probably usually a positive thing, but that's kind of where I am with it. It feels like it's always there, that if I say should, then it automatically I go into this place of guilt because I haven't already done whatever it is, or said whatever it is, or thought whatever it is, or created the task for whatever it is. And so I think this might be something that is sitting with me from when I directed Harold Pinter's Old Times this summer, and that is pauses, right? What if, like those Pinter pauses that let you get uncomfortable and breathe into that silence and into that stillness, what if taking the time to create intentional pauses, those times when you stop producing, when you stop clawing ahead, to just exist? What if that's a really incredible positive, right? And you're not even meditating. You're not problem solving. You're not trying to get inspired. You're just being, breathing, observing what's going on around you, listening with no expectations about anything. And in fact, for me, it's interesting because when I wrote the play Listen, which is all about my eavesdropping, observing other people, listening to other people for over 20 years, I was watching and listening and just sort of chronicling and cataloging the really incredible things I overheard from people. And why am I talking about this? Because I didn't realize at the time that I was getting this incredible slice of all of these different lives. And I love that so ridiculously much, seeing how people relate to each other, how they say what they say, how they think what they think, because nobody realized I was eavesdropping. I have a really good hearing and a terrific memory, so I wasn't right in their business. I was just chronicling what they said. And that started because I was just taking time to listen to what's going on in the world around me. So I was existing, and I did end up doing something with it, something creative and something I love. It's my first full-length play. But it is very interesting to get to a place, honestly, where it came from having done the stillness rather than intentionally going, I'm going to eavesdrop and write a play about it. That's not what happened. So it's really interesting to me because that sort of hit a refresh on what I bring to the table. I wasn't trying to write a play. It's not it's the first full length play I've written, but it's also really the first play I wrote. And then I've written a bunch of other stuff since then. But it jump started this whole facet of what I'm doing now, which is writing plays and also directing them. And that creativity got to well up, got to bubble up from my subconscious from those moments of just observing. And yet I know it's hard, right? It's really hard to do nothing. So when I first tried it, really, the only way I did it was because I was listening to other people. I couldn't sit still. I kept thinking, I'm not doing anything. Am I doing this right? Like, what do I do now? And I think that's the point, is that most of us don't even know how to sit still anymore. We don't know how to be still. And I think that's because we've received these messages that we need to have value, because value equals output, value equals achievement. And that's what it is. And so if we're not busy, we got to be wasting time. But your brain, your incredibly creative brain, needs downtime to integrate ideas and to make new connections and just to rest. Now, a lot of us probably know sleep does that for you, right? It allows you to sort of dump the stuff you don't need from the day and also to make those connections. But the vast majority of us do not get enough sleep, not nearly enough sleep. So it becomes harder to make those connections, to have a rested mind and a rested brain. So the way I look at it is it's a way of catching up on some of the sleep you might have missed. So if you stop filling every minute, your subconscious finally gets a chance to speak to you, to make some of those connections, and those insights start bubbling up more. It really becomes kind of effortless. For me, it ends up being Edna, who comes and helps me make some of those connections. And that's my name for the subconscious part of my mind and brain. And that's okay. Like, other people have other names or don't have any names for this. I decided to personify her as looking incredibly like Edna Mode from The Incredibles. I said incredible 4 times now. Oh, well, but you know what I mean. Sometimes you need to personify the thing you're trying to achieve or the thing you're trying to communicate with, because it becomes easier. So I want you to think about what that means, why it'll give you permission to do nothing. I know, it's hard. It's even saying it, give yourself permission to do nothing, feels uncomfortable for me, because I always try to be doing something, and yet I'm trying to do this time every day where I'm doing nothing. And that's because there are a lot of benefits, right? It's not just about relaxing. It's going to restore you on a really deep level. And here are some things that might happen, could happen, probably will happen if you give yourself permission to take a pause. So creativity booms. If your mind wanders freely, it's going to connect ideas that really structured thinking can't connect. It's going to be able to reach into sort of effortless space and make some of those connections. You will really lower your stress level. Your nervous system is going to shift out of fight or flight or freeze and into sort of what they call parasympathetic, which is rest and digest and kind of get back into that space. You're going to increase your focus. Honestly, even after a few minutes of being still, you're going to come back more clear and more grounded, and that is going to sharpen your focus. And one of my favorites, of course, is intuition. Intuition is going to improve because without the noise that's constantly do, should, you're going to finally get to hear that innermost part of yourself and what that does for you. And honestly, to me, there's a kind of a return to joy. And I know that sounds maybe Pollyanna like or silly, but I've started noticing simple, lovely, beautiful things. And they don't have to be big. They can be pretty ordinary, but you start noticing what's good about them because you're coming at it from a place of less stress and less, if you're not useful to me, then I don't have time for you, and more from a place of let me be open to what's possible. And honestly, the magic of all of this is that you don't need hours to be still every day. You can do 3 to 5 minutes of actual stillness every day can change how you think, how you create, and how you feel. So let's think about this. How? How do you start practicing doing nothing? Right? I want to give you a few ways, simple, pretty simple, easy ways of doing nothing. You don't need any sort of meditation space or a fancy setup, and you don't really need any kind of training to do this. It's just you, 3 to 5 minutes, and some willingness to take that pause. So the first thing you can do, one of the things you can do is called, it's sort of the window pause. You go sit by a window or stand by a window and just look outside. And don't analyze or name what you see. Just look at it, just observe it. And maybe watch if there are trees around you, watch how the light goes through the leaves, how the leaves move. Are there plants? Are there people? Are there shadows? Just notice what actually is going on. And that's it. Just observe. Your only job here is to notice, not to do anything else. Just notice what's there. And I got to tell you, even just a few minutes of this sort of silent looking is going to start to make your internal rhythm a little bit more slow, a little bit more measured. And honestly, you might be surprised at how creative your thoughts are afterward. I would love to hear from you. If you try this, tell me what happens, because I've found it powerful. I sit out on my balcony and just watch the leaves dance. And when I was a kid, I used to actually believe that it was the trees dancing that made the breeze and not the other way around. I had no idea that the breeze was what ruffled the leaves. I thought the trees were dancing and the leaves were moving, and that's what caused the breeze, because the breeze never happened without the leaves moving. And it's, of course, obviously the opposite, but when I was a child, that's what I thought. And I ended up writing a song all about the dancing trees. And that was just because when I was a kid, I spent a lot of time, no toys, obviously no gadgets, but we had no toys. We had no dolls. We had no trucks. We had nothing like that to play with when I was a child. So you made your fun outside. You played with whatever was at hand. Rocks were my friends. I loved smelling different flowers, just walking to different wildflowers and seeing if they had a scent, back before my scent allergies took hold. Anyway, my point is that just observing is going to open up a huge world. And the next thing that you could try is set a timer for 3 to 5 minutes. Try 3 to start if 5 feels too long. And just close your eyes and pay attention to your breath. The rise, the fall, the space in between the breaths, the expansion of your body as you take a breath in, and sort of the contraction, the gentle contraction as you breathe out. And don't control anything. Don't try to make it deep or perfect. Just see what it feels like. Just see what is happening. Just observe it. And I got to tell you, each time your mind goes somewhere else to the I shoulds or I oughta or whatever the to-do list item thing is that's next on your list, because it's going to happen. When it happens, just acknowledge it, say, I'll be back to you later, and come on back to just observing your breathing. And I got to tell you, it's that little returning thing, that act of going, okay, I'll deal with you in a minute and come on back to the breath, is incredibly powerful, because it tells your subconscious, your conscious, everything that it's okay to rest right here. It's okay to just be right here. You'll get to the other stuff. And for the moment, you're doing this. It's amazing just doing that. It helps me so much to just get back to that place of it's okay to do nothing for a little while. Just do nothing. And speaking of nothing, the third thing you can try is sort of the nothing walk. Take a short walk with zero goals, not to go shopping, not to stop at the bank, not to feed the meter if your car's by a meter, none of that. No phone on. You can take your phone with you if you need to, but don't check it. Don't listen to a podcast or music. Just walk. And try not to think about all the to-do list items. Just walk and sort of let your senses guide you. Are there aromas? Are there colors? Do you feel a breeze? The sound of your footsteps, the sound of your breath, the sounds around you, and just notice what's happening. Don't judge it. Don't even acknowledge it much past noticing that it's there. And really, this is sort of a moving meditation almost. It's doing nothing with awareness while you're moving in the world, down the street, down a lane, around a track even. I've done this going to a running track, but just walked around the track and noticed what I see when I'm on the different parts of the track. And then noticing what's different the next time I come around to the same part of the track where I started, for example. So there's a lot of stuff that you can be doing in those moments that is really powerful. Alrighty, cool. Yeah, and it's really interesting to me because when I do my creativity coaching, when I work with creatives to help them get started, get moving, some of the most powerful insights happen after you do the work, not during, not while you're doing the work. And what I mean by that is if you give yourself permission to stop pushing in a certain direction, then your creativity is going to start whispering ideas. And what's interesting is sometimes you're pushing in a direction that perhaps might not be best for you. And if you take a moment to pause, then you might see another direction, a heretofore unexplored space that you might be better looking at with your creativity, with your writing, with your sculpting, with your music, with whatever it is that you're trying to do, with the project that you have to finish for your boss. Sometimes giving yourself those moments to pause lets you see possible solutions afterwards that weren't apparent before you took the pause. And honestly, those breakthroughs are going to happen. I can almost promise you, but they're going to happen quietly and naturally and really sort of beautifully. And so, you know that I like to give sort of a try this week kind of thing. And I want you to do that. I want once a day, this whole week, set a timer for 5 minutes and do one of the 3 do nothing techniques that I just talked about. And then when the timer ends, I want you to write down a sentence about how you feel, not what you thought, but how you feel, how your body feels. Do you feel calm, energized, restless, stressed out, worried, whatever it is? Just track it over a few days. And I'm gonna say that you'll probably notice a shift, small maybe at first, but then deeper and bigger. And that's how, honestly, doing nothing starts to change everything you do. And I love this for all of us. I hope that we all do more of this. And I'm right there with you, by the way. I would love, love, love to have more time for myself to do nothing. And I'm working on it, right? I'm working on meditating every day, but from a place of doing nothing rather than a focused intention. And there are lots of different ways of meditating, and certainly I've talked about them on the show. But what's important to me right now is to take the time to do nothing and to forgive myself for not doing anything. And that's hard for me. I tend to want to do, should all the time. So I'm going to invite you to remember that creativity is going to thrive in open space. And the pauses between those notes in many ways, sometimes makes the music. So I want you to give yourself permission to pause, to breathe, to simply be. And honestly, that's because the next great idea might not come when you're doing more. It might actually come when you're finally doing nothing. All right, I'm Izolda Trakhtenberg, and this is the Your Creative Mind podcast. Remember, it's going to be evolving into something even more geared towards creativity and the psychology and the inner workings of the creative mind. I'm going to go even further, even more deeply into that. And I invite you to try the do nothing exercises. See what happens for you, and drop me a line and let me know. I would love to hear about it. Until next time, again, this is Izolda Trakhtenberg for the Your Creative Mind podcast, reminding you, as always, to be curious, be creative, and most of all, be kind. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe to the podcast if you're new, and it would mean the world to me if you told a friend about it. Today's episode was produced by Izolda Trakhtenberg and is copyright 2025. As always, please remember this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, although we can always hope.